After shedding the vast majority of its long-time audience, its most dedicated fans who loved Doctor Who and its peculiar, quirky British quality that always just seemed to work, Doctor Who has arrived at its end point, in terms of ratings at least, with even lower ratings than the Sylvester McCoy era back in the late 80s, which were low enough for the show to be cancelled and on hiatus for 16 years. Doctor Who under Russell T Davies and main star Ncuti Gatwa has gone full progressive, stunning and brave, and...
What did it cost?
Everything.
Well, not quite everything. There's clearly still a little over 1.5 million people each week who tune into the show, plus all the iPlayer folks who couldn't be bothered watching it live like they used to, so they catch up with it later at some point, because it's not exactly appointment viewing anymore. With the Capaldi era, they made the Doctor a doormat for Clara to walk all over, which just got worse under his next companion. So much so, in fact, that there was an episode where the Doctor was terrified that his first incarnation, played by David Bradley in that episode, was going to say something politically incorrect or sexist in front of his new diverse lesbian girl boss companion, Billy Potts. Then they made the Doctor a woman, and they really cranked up the political messaging beyond all reason at that stage.
Be ridiculous, Franklin. I've read the files. The Doctor is a man.
I've had an upgrade. Hi.
The ratings tanked over the next few years as huge swathes of the fan base no longer recognized the show. I mean, we told them this was going to happen, but some people just stuck with it a little longer than I would have expected. But they've figured it out now, that's for sure, because they don't watch anymore. But the viewership drop wasn't quite enough to cancel the show at that point, and the promise of a financial injection from a Disney Plus deal meant the show could afford to continue for a little longer in its progressive and modern direction. Even bringing back fan favourite David Tennant for the 60th anniversary specials wasn't enough to rekindle the fire of the show. The damage had been done to the Doctor Who brand at that point, as fans had been turned off by the preachy identity politics messaging, and of course it didn't help that the Doctor was lectured in those episodes about correct pronoun usage, and he was talked down to because he's a male-presenting Time Lord. The Gatwa era looks like it won't last beyond this season, with Davies expected to move on and Gatwa rumoured to have filmed his regeneration scene for the character already. We shall see. Either way, these past 2 seasons have been characterised by having the lowest rated episodes in the entire 60-year history of the Doctor Who franchise. What an accolade to have! In particular, the overnight ratings, which this season, for the first time ever, has dropped consistently below 2 million. Just over the weekend gone, a new episode aired called The Story and the Engine, which is set in Lagos. The ratings are slightly higher than last week, which again was the lowest rated episode. But that's not saying very much. The Story and the Engine received a rating of just 1.59 million viewers overnight. Just a hair higher than last week. As you can see, the law of diminishing returns has truly set in. This seems to be its new operating level. This article is from tvzone.uk.com. Ratings: Doctor Who sees slight increase for latest episode, The Story and the Engine. Doctor Who continued on BBC One on Saturday 10th of May with The Story and the Engine, which scored overnight audience of 1.59 million. The consolidated rating, which will include iPlayer devices and catch-up, will be released 19th of May. Overall, it was the BBC's 4th highest rated primetime programme of the day outside the news. The news. It was once upon a time Doctor Who was number 1. It was number 1. It was the show. It was such a flagship for the BBC. And obviously a cultural icon, you know. It was an extremely important show. And everyone used to watch it. And it was a family show. I wouldn't put kids in front of this show now, given all the messaging. It was also a night where the BBC failed to break the 2 million mark in prime time, with ITV dominating the night with Britain's Got Talent and the 1% Club. And again, as I've said before, Doctor Who is such a massive budget TV show, and it had this dedicated sci-fi audience. But as a result of, you know, what's become of the show, it's now being beaten consistently week after week by far cheaper programming, such as the news. The news, like, doesn't cost very much to make. It's just a person sitting in a studio, right, reading off a teleprompter. And also reality TV shows, like Britain's Got Talent and so forth. It's just embarrassing. So anyway, as you can see, and I'll include the article linked below for you to check out, here's a breakdown of the 5 episodes of this season so far. You can see the overnight ratings, and it also gives you the consolidated ratings for the episodes we have so far. There's only going to be 8 episodes this season, just like there was last season. There was a time when Doctor Who used to do 12 and 13 episode seasons, of course. They dropped down to 10 episodes during the Jodie Whittaker era. So the premiere had the highest ratings of the season, and even that was extremely bad, just 2 million overnight. Really poor. Maybe the show will have a slight bump for the final episode of this season, which will be episode 8. I'm sure there will probably be a morbid curiosity among some longtime fans just to see how Gatwa's reign as the Doctor comes to an end. But besides that, I can't see very much really raising the numbers. Although there is some sort of Eurovision episode coming up, another kind of gimmick. So we'll see what that does. It was a very special show. It really was. And it had an odd charm all of its own. And there were some really wonderful and very creative science fiction stories over the many decades of the franchise. But despite all of the backlash that the BBC received from fans in recent years who were very unhappy with what was happening to the show, the BBC instead decided to double and even triple down on the unpopular direction that they were taking the show, and they just simply refused to course correct. They could have at any time gone back to the formula that made the show work, but they didn't, and as a result, they've destroyed Doctor Who. They've just destroyed it, everything that was good about it. And it's like they simply just didn't care that they'd alienated the vast majority of the fan base. Radio Times had this article, Millie Gibson responds to Doctor Who woke criticisms. Just watch it and get over it. The show is so pure and beautiful. Maybe pure and beautiful can be my replacement for saying stunning and brave. What do you think? I'll let you guys decide in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.